Hey guys, what the heck is going on? Samcoxygo here with Team Bropire, and coming at you guys today with a deck profile for a Chaos deck. This is a version of Chaos that I consider pure Chaos or flip Chaos. It doesn't run a lot of other shenanigans that a lot of some other Chaos decks run, like Tomatoes, Angels, and things like that. Just a bunch of weird stuff. It's really just kind of a basic breakdown of a Chaos deck, lights and darks with a bunch of flip monsters and support cards that kind of go along with it. So this is a re-upload of a deck that I had on the channel last year, and just like another deck or two on this channel, we ended up re-uploading them because of a few different reasons, but the main one being because they were profiles that I feel like weren't the builds that I would play nowadays whenever I'm playing GOAT, and I just wanted to have the truest form of these profiles out on the channel for you guys. I didn't want to have something out on the channel I'm like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have played that. So yeah, there's a couple of other profiles that we ended up just redoing, and this was one of them. And so I ended up playing this deck in a tournament, I'd say probably a year, maybe 18 months ago. I went to a GOAT tournament down in Texas, me and the guys, and there were 29 people in the tournament, and I ended up getting top 4 with this deck. I think overall, I wrote it down, we were trying to remember it. I ended up going 4-1 in Swiss, and then in Top Cut, I got, I won the top 8, and then I made it to top 4 and then got knocked out. But overall, I think I was 14-5-ish. Something like that. But anyway, so this was a really fun deck. I love Chaos. Obviously, it's arguably one of the best decks, if not the best deck in GOAT format. So yeah, it's a really awesome deck. There are a few changes that I made to this deck, and I wanted to kind of just have them out on the channel because yeah, the old video was just like, yeah, I probably wouldn't play that now. So I just wanted to give you guys just kind of an updated version of the winning deck that I played that probably would have made it maybe even first or second place, who knows. But before we get into this, if you guys are interested, feel free to support the channel at the Patreon down below. The Patreon is the Patreon for my band, Raglan. If you guys are interested, the band is comprised of my wife and I, and by supporting that, you are directly supporting this channel. There's not like a direct Patreon for this channel. It all just kind of goes to the same place. So if you guys are interested, if you feel so inclined, there's a $3 option down there if you guys are poor people like us but you just want to support the channel. We'd appreciate that. So anyway, we're going to get into the profile. So for starters, obviously we play 1 BLS because it's a Chaos deck. I play 5 of this card if I could and then we play 2 copies of Chaos Sork. I'm going to do my best throughout this whole entire profile to explain the choices and ratios and different techs and tricks and stuff, and for sure answer any questions you guys have below. But for starters, from saying that, I only play 2 copies of this card because I like to try to minimize opening double Chaos monsters in my opening hand, and not only that, but just try to minimize really kind of seeing it first turn, because I don't really like to see a Chaos monster first turn. And 3 is okay. I think if you're playing, in my opinion, I think if you're playing something like Card Destruction or multiple Raigeki Breaks or Phoenix Wingwind Blast, things like that. We play very little discard outlet in this, so I'm only playing 2 copies. So yeah, if you're playing those or playing something like Morphing Jar, Cyber Jar, that kind of stuff, I think that you're okay to probably play more than 2 Sork, but I like to just keep it at 2, so I like to have just 1 and 2. So next we have 3 copies of Thunder Dragon. Now I'm going to be super elementary for you guys because you never know who's watching these videos. This might be somebody's first time ever watching a GOAT format video, and they're looking at deck profiles and stuff, so I always try to keep that in mind. So I'm going to just get super elementary. Feel free to fast forward through any of this stuff if you guys are like, yeah, I already know that. But so what Thunder Dragon does is you pitch a copy, get 2 of them out of the deck. So this is probably one of the best cards in GOAT. I'd say probably top 5. I need to make a video just on this card by itself because it's that good. The benefits of having this is you get light in the grave, you deck then by 2, you can add more cards to your hand, protect it from things like Duo, Card Destruction, Thessalos, Spirit Reaper, Morphing Jar, all that kind of stuff. And then having a level 5 just for tribute fodder for if you steal your opponent's monster with Snatch, Shield, Brain Control. The list goes on of why this card is just so good. But yeah, we play 3 copies in this deck just to get the light fuel going to the grave, because all of our other light monsters are flip effect monsters, and sometimes those don't resolve. So that being said, this is a flip Chaos deck, and the most common strategy in GOAT format whenever you're playing a Chaos deck is having lights and darks that have a lot of synergy, not only with your Chaos monsters, but they have synergy like within themselves. Like if you don't ever see these, you could like wear down your opponent just from advantage alone. So they all go with the concept of Night Assailant. So Night Assailant is a dark monster. It's a flip and allows you to add a flip effect monster from your grave to your hand whenever it's sent to the grave by a card effect. So that being said, we play a lot of flips that go along with this. We play, for starters, 2 copies of Magician of Faith. Some people play 3 of this. I like to play 2. And everybody knows what Faith does, grab a spell back from the grave. And this is probably, these 2 cards are the main 2 flip effect monsters that go along with the Chaos Engine. And the rest of it's just deck thinners and, offense or defense. Kind of really depends on how you look at it. So then we have 2 copies of Merchants, 3 copies of Spy, and then 3 copies of Dekoichi. Now, I will say that this list is a little bit different than most. This was all of the flip effect monsters that I played in the tournament. I like to play 12. I like to consistently overwhelm my opponent with the amount of flip effect monsters that I have, because they only have, so many Noblemen of Crossout and so many Blade Knights and level 2 Swordsmen and Torrential Tributes and anything that get rid of face down flip effect monsters, but you have 12 flip effects, so it really kind of makes it to where if you have one in your hand or on the field at all times, it's really kind of overwhelming for them. And sometimes you have one like in the hand and on the field, like at all times throughout the game. What I want to say about this is I have an order of the way I like to do things. If it works out this way, perfect. Sometimes it doesn't, but I like to set Spy first, because if they end up activating Knock on this card, cool, your deck thinned by 3, and you play a lot more darks in this deck than you do lights anyway, so you could afford to have a Spy knocked. So if I could afford to open Spy, or if I could choose to open Spy every single game and then have them just knock it straight out of the deck, I would love that. That'd be awesome. Next, you could arguably set either Dekoichi or Merchant, depending on if you have Light Fuel already in the grave. If you already do, then you can afford to get this guy out of the deck. And this is a really good card to see mid to late game. If we could always make that happen, that'd be great. It kind of sucks seeing at the beginning of the game, you set it, they don't knock it, you flip it, and then you end up milling like 2 Chaos monsters. That happens sometimes. 3 Dekoichi is great because same concept as Spy. You want to just kind of deck thin if you can. This is great to resolve if you flip and then just get the draw. This has a decent attack. It's 14. It's the biggest of all the flips, and you can get at their life points. You get 14 life points, or you can destroy one of their monsters on their side of the field, so it's good. I like to try to set Faith last mid to late game, because if adding back a Snatch Steal or a Charity or something, or a duo mid to late game can like really just kind of alter the game. So yeah, 12 flip effect monsters. That's what I like to personally play. Next, we have a couple of one-ofs. We have Sangan and Breaker. Sangan's a really good card because it can search pretty much every monster in your deck except for Breaker, the Thunder Dragons, and the big guys. I like to set this card a lot because it's there's a lot of mind games that go along with Sangan. You can set it, and then they try to activate things like Exiled Force, Blade Knight, level 2 Swordsman, Mind Control, all those kinds of things on this. And then in a lot of situations, your opponent goes -1 because they thought that they were going to run over something like a Faith or a Dekoichi, and then they don't. So I like to just set Sangan. And if they knock it, kind of the same concept. That's just one less knock that's going to get rid of these guys. So yeah, Sangan's great. He's a dark, obviously. Breaker is cool, pops your opponent's back row. I like to just kind of try to go for the +1 a lot of times. If your opponent has things like Kaiku Tribe, Blade Knight, things like that on your opponent's face-up side of the field, add a counter, try to attack over it, and if they hit it with Ring of Destruction, Book of Moon, Mirror Force, whatever, then it's in most cases a 1-for-1 anyway, so why not try to go for the 2-for-1? Not always, but a lot of times that's kind of a little tip that you can do to get more advantage. 2 copies of Tsukiyomi. This card can be tricky. It can be cloggy sometimes, but it's really good. It has so much synergy with flipping all of these other cards face down and just abusing them. If your opponent can't answer this with something like a Book of Moon or Ring of Destruction or whatever, then you can just keep netting advantage, and it's really, really cool. There's been hundreds of games where I've flipped over Faith or Dekoichi, and I just kept getting his flip effect off every single turn and just gaining advantage until my opponent could do something about it. And then you have so much advantage on them for the rest of the game that you're pretty much just winning from then on out, because GOAT format is just all about advantage more than it is life points. You can't make your life points reach 0, but you want to make sure that your advantage is more than them if you can do that. Tsukiyomi also combos great with Nobleman of Crossout. I'd play 5 of this card as well as if I could. Book of Moon is the next spell. We're going to get into spells for you guys. Book of Moon can also go well sometimes with Tsukiyomi if it's worth the neg 1, if you know what I'm saying. But Book of Moon's great. This dodges things like your opponent's Snatch Steal, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, your opponent's Chaos Orc if they're activating it. I love Book of Moon. If and it combos well with any flip effect monster that you had on the field that stayed on the field from your opponent's previous turn. You can just abuse it again. So I love this card. This card is kind of like my favorite trap card in this deck, if that makes any sense, because it's such a reactive card and it's chainable to almost anything. So yeah, Book of Moon's great. Get into the other spells. We play 2 Back Row Disruption. It's kind of standard. Pot of Greed, Duo, and Charity. Obviously the Trinity. This card is probably the best of all 3 of these, in just the way that this deck works, because you can manipulate your grave depending on what you want to pitch. If you have a BLS in your hand and you have a Thunder Dragon and a Night Assailant in your grave, then just get some lights and darks in the grave. You can net some crazy advantage if you're pitching things like Night Assailant off of this. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes if you have double Night Assailant and you see 3 new cards and you get both of them back and you're just netting a whole bunch of advantage. Snatch Steal, kind of standard. Yeah, sometimes you can tribute your own Thunder Dragon if you steal their problematic monster. That's always kind of cool. For consistency, we have 2 copies of Upstart. I like the 2 Upstarts, man. I like 2 Upstarts in almost any GOAT deck. Getting into the traps, I play 1 copy of Raigeki Break. Personally, I feel like multiple discard outlets can get cloggy. You have to kind of get your engine going first, so you don't really want to open them unless you open things like Thunder Dragon or Night Assailant and have flips in the grave. I like 1 copy of Raigeki Break because it can out pretty much anything on the field, almost anything. And I don't like to play traps that aren't reactive, if that makes sense. I don't like to play things that I can't chain. So I like to try to make sure that I'm playing cards like Raigeki Break that can if they're going to destroy it with Heavy Storm or MST, Dust Tornado, whatever, I'm making sure that I'm chaining it if I can. So that being said, these are also some more chainable, reactive trap cards. I played 2 Dust Tornado in this deck because I like to make sure that I protect my Chaos monsters from things like Snatch Steal. They have big attack and really good effects, and with great power comes great responsibility, And then I like to play 1 Ring of Destruction. This card's kind of standard in most GOAT decks anyway because, it's just a one of and it's that good. This closes out many games because you play a lot of high attack monsters. So then we play 1 copy of Mirror Force. I like to play Mirror Force because even though it's not a chainable trap, it's just that good. You can get a +1 or +2. Depends on how good. This card's as good as your opponent is, if that makes sense. So getting into the side deck, 1 copy of Jinzo, because we don't play a ton of traps anyway, and we can easily side them out if needed. 2 copies of Mind Control. I like to play these because if you're playing in the Chaos Mirror match, they're really good to steal your opponent's Faith or their Chaos monster, whatever. I don't like 3. I wouldn't play 3 if you're playing competitively because 3 won't work on good players. The first one is kind of iffy. The second one you can maybe pull off sometimes, but I like to play 2 just to make sure that I see 1. But 3 kind of just, again, kind of like Mirror Forces. This card's as good as your opponent is, I guess. Then we play 3 copies of Royal Decree. I like to side a lot for things like Burn. 3 copies of Royal Decree, that and the Jinzo, and I like to play the True Nades. They go along with that. The second Dust Tornado, that's kind of, standard for siding against Burn. There's other cards, but I like to try to just make sure that I'm, playing cards that go with my deck or, can have other utility. Like for Giant True Nade, for instance, I like this card because I like to side it against Go Control sometimes, because if your opponent's activating Thousand Eyes Restrict, and let's say they steal your face down Magician of Faith, or they steal your Chaos Orc, you can activate Giant True Nade and then the monster goes back up to your hand, and then if you leave your opponent's Thousand Eyes Restrict on the field with nothing to attach it to, and then they're kind of left to destroy it themselves. And I've seen people banish their own Restrict with things like Sork, or tribute over it with the Thunder Dragon, or set it with Tsukiyomi, or whatever. So yeah, it's I like Giant Trunade for that reason. Also, you just this is good against things like Necro Valley. Also Dust Tornado. It's good against things like Necro Valley. Problematic cards that don't allow you to do what your deck does, pretty much. Then we play 3 copies of Trap Dust Shoot. I like siding this card going in first. Chaos has such a high ceiling to begin with that if you end up siding this in going first and then you end up seeing it, it's really, really, really beneficial for the way that your deck works. And then 3 copies of Spell Canceller. Now, as a Reasoning Gate player myself, I hate to put this card in a profile because I know how good it is against Reasoning Gates, but it's that good. And this wouldn't be a true profile to the best of my ability if I didn't put this card in there for you guys. It's kind of easy-ish to get out if you summon Sork and then normal summon, tribute it. Flip one of your flip monsters, use its effect, tribute it. Just kind of the same way that you would play Chaos Monarchs. It's that simple. It's a win, so it doesn't go along with the lights and darks, but anyway, guys, that is the profile. I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you guys got something out of this. And I tried to keep it again as elementary as I could for the people that don't know a ton about GOAT. So I hope I didn't bore any of the experts out there watching this, but yeah, this was a fun deck. This was a fun tournament. Top 4 with this one. Hopefully I'll get to play this deck again in another tournament, and yeah. But I appreciate you guys watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Check out all the links below to my band's music. If you guys are interested, we do have a Patreon. If you guys are interested in supporting the band and the channel and all that good stuff. So we will see y'all later. Thank you guys for watching.